your consent because I'll be recording the lecture. And yes, so in the last class, we had a meeting at 11 o'clock and I wasn't feeling well on that day, so I didn't take the class. And at exactly 11, when I was meant to take your class, there was a meeting regarding examination matters. So sorry about that, but I will compensate for that some other day. I'll let you know when. So today, the other day I introduced the syllabus to you guys. Today, we are going to discuss about jurisprudence. Okay, so basically introductory again. So I suggest that you leave your mics off, but turn your videos on. But it's okay, fine, leave it off. If you need anything, ask me. I'll be recording and I'll be sending anyway. Yes, so today, formal introduction to the subject of jurisprudence. Okay, so I hope everyone's there. I'm taking attendance quickly. Okay, done. Okay, so just a second. Yeah, so today we are going to discuss about this subject, the dreaded subject of jurisprudence. But as I told you the other day, there's nothing to fear this subject. This is a good subject, and this is something that's worth learning, not just because everyone says that this subject is difficult, and also everyone says that this is a subject that is difficult but worth learning, but because of the fact that it truly enriches your understanding of law, okay, law and legal system. And along with that also goes the questions of justice, as one of you had asked me. Well, I will answer that question a little later, after we start the different schools of jurisprudence. Anyway, today we begin our lectures on, formally begin our lectures on jurisprudence. Okay, so as I said, do not fear the subject, take the subject seriously, read the readings that I sent. So after the last class, for example, I told you guys to go through the introductory portion of the book that I had attached. Okay, so I hope you did. Then it's easier for me to explain the concepts for you, because there is already certain ideas in the back of your head, and when I go on speaking, you have something to refer back to and reflect on. So even if I make mistakes in explaining something, then you guys will be there to help me fix that. So it should be a dialogical, interactive process. Although this platform doesn't allow much interaction, but I nonetheless encourage and insist that you guys raise questions, queries, and seek clarifications of confusions that might arise. Yeah, so let's begin then. Okay, so let's start with this question of jurisprudence. Okay, what is this thing called jurisprudence? I tried to tell you what it is in the last class. It consists of two different words, juris and prudentia. Juris, let's say that, for relating to law, and prudentia is knowledge or science or whatever. Okay, so it's basically knowledge of law or science of law. But then when I say that it is knowledge of law, I don't convey the meaning of the subject well enough, because you might have knowledge of, for example, IPC, CPC, whatever other law then you have knowledge of law. But that doesn't mean that you are doing jurisprudence. Okay, that doesn't mean that. I think the definition becomes clear. Just a second. Yes. Class pisat karailon. So yeah, so you might know this or that law, but that doesn't mean that you are doing jurisprudence. You're not. Okay, because jurisprudence then has a very restricted meaning. Okay, compared to what I was trying to how I was trying to define it. Okay. But then that jurisprudence is a subject that deals with questions about law, general questions about law. Okay, so this much you should definitely keep in your mind. Okay, that we are not referring to specific subjects of law, for example, law of contract, property, or something like that, but then we are dealing with questions about law. Okay, so one of the most important questions that jurists deal with, okay, more specifically legal theorists, those who say that they are dealing with legal theory, okay, they deal with this one specific question known as, called what is law, and that's basically what they do. Although the question is basically 3 words, okay, but to be able to answer that, you need lots of theoretical analysis, okay. So anyway, so this is what jurists essentially do. They deal with law, okay, not specific law, but law generally. What is this concept of law? They also deal with various other concepts, okay. They also deal with various other concepts I tried to tell you the other day. So for example, rights, duties, what is property, what is possession, all these concepts, that you will be studying, for example, in the next semester. All these things are dealt with by the jurists, okay? They deal with all these concepts. They also deal with questions about, for example, what is a legal system? So in the previous, semester, we studied comparative legal systems, okay? So what is a legal system, okay? So jurists try to deal with that question, what is a legal system? Then, of course, one of you had very interestingly asked me, okay, sir, then what about justice, okay? How do you define justice? Yes, of course, jurists deal with that question as well. What is justice? What is the relationship between law and justice, okay? So this is essentially what jurists do, okay? Although in recent times, there are many thinkers who might be, eager to identify themselves as, jurists, or you can say that they are doing jurisprudence, okay? But does that mean that we have jurists only now, since these thinkers have started identifying as jurists? No, I mean, yes, any question there? Okay. If you have any question, you can unmute and ask me questions. Do not hesitate, okay? If I go fast, then just interject, okay? Then ask me to slow down a little bit. Or you can also type in your question in the chat section. So, yes, what I was essentially saying is that, yeah, is it the case that jurisprudence, as a subject has only emerged recently, or jurists have also, come up only in recent times? No. Although you see that there are thinkers who identify themselves as jurists in more recent times. But the way I tried to define, generally tried to define the subject of jurisprudence here and what, this subject deals with, you will find that there is a long history of people trying to do jurisprudence, okay? But we study in this subject, okay, for this paper, we study from the Greco-Roman periods, okay? We do not go, beyond that. Although quite often we refer to certain, biblical notions here and there, okay? So that means you have to go further if you focus on the Old Testament. But then in terms of, thinkers, we start from, for example, from the Greco-Roman times, starting with Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, and all those thinkers. And then we move on, okay, forward. So yeah, so this is essentially what jurisprudence is. Jurisprudence is to introduce the subject to you. So, are you guys clear with the explanations I've tried to give you? You can say yes, or you can type yes. Then I'll proceed. Okay, there's a lot of yes there. So I'll assume that you understood what I was trying to explain. So see, it's not a difficult subject. As long as you focus, as long as you respond to my questions, okay. Also raise questions though, because that's what makes it more interesting, okay. So now, a question that might arise, okay, that, sir, can we not become lawyers if, just a second, let me see this. Yes, raise your doubt, Disha. You can unmute and ask me the question. No issues.
So, is it necessary for a jurist to be directly related to law, or can they be in any aligned social sciences field and then talk about how law affects it? Let's say somebody from the field of economics talks about, like, let's say Amartya Sen talks about something related to justice. So, would he be considered a jurist?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Now, here's the thing, okay? We do not have any specific definition of, what is, who is a jurist, okay? The funny thing. But then, it depends in the sense that, so for example, it's easier for me to call someone like John Austin or H.L.A. Hart or Ronald Dworkin as a jurist, okay? Because their primary concern is with that of, the question of law, okay? But then you have other thinkers, okay, economists, political thinkers, okay? They do contribute a lot to questions which are raised in the subject of jurisprudence, but their predominant occupation is not with this question of law, okay? So although, yeah, you may refer to a specific part of their work that might overlap with what jurists conventionally do, and then say that, okay, on these matters he's being a jurist, but then you do not, there's, as I say again, that we do not have any definition of who's a jurist, okay? So you might be a little reluctant to call them jurists, but then their works might have a tremendous effect on established jurisprudential theory. Yeah. So essentially what I'm saying here is this, that those who are jurists, or those who we refer to as jurists, their predominant occupation is with that of law, okay? They deal with the question of law. I'm not saying that they have to be lawyers, not necessary, okay? But for example, there are many professors, okay, they're academicians who do not practice law, but the fact that they do not practice law doesn't mean that they cannot be jurists, okay? As long as they deal with these specific questions that I referred to, and they predominantly deal with those questions, you can refer to them as jurists. But there could be then political thinkers, okay? For example, John Locke, a lot of, great part of his work deals with the question of law, justice, and all that, okay, rights, basically. So you can call him a political thinker, you can also call him a jurist. There's no hard and fast rule. But there are other thinkers, okay, who we, do not refer to as jurists, because their predominant, task is something else, but they, definitely also refer to certain law questions. But then it's up to you, okay? You can refer to Amartya Sen as jurist. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, I have one more question, sir. I want to define, if I want to define jurisprudence, then what should be the comprehensive definition? So here's the disappointment for you. The fact that you have all these many different schools of jurisprudence, that tells you that there are all these different ways of defining the subject of jurisprudence, okay? So we do not have any comprehensive definition of jurisprudence, but then why the hell do we study this subject if there is no such universally accepted definition? What I think is that it takes, okay, every time you study a new definition of jurisprudence, it approximates approximately takes you closer and closer to the definition of what jurisprudence is all about, or the questions that the subject of jurisprudence essentially deals with, okay? But then, as I said, okay, basically, okay, if you want a definition, it's that what is jurisprudence? So jurisprudence is a subject, okay, that deals with general questions about law, justice, relation between law and morality, okay, and law and various other subjects. This is essentially what jurisprudence deals with, okay? Okay, I have one more question. So can we say that jurisprudence is a subject to interpret or to try to define concept of justice? Okay, very interesting question, okay? But then jurisprudence deals with justice, as I told you, okay? But jurisprudence doesn't only deal with justice. It also deals with questions of law. For example, what is law? Okay, what is law? Now, one might say that law is all about justice, okay? If there is no justice, there is no law. But then you have thinkers here, especially the analytical positivists, okay? They say that there is no relation, no necessary connection between law and justice, okay? Okay, but yeah, well, if you say, if you're using the term justice in the legal sense, okay, but if you're using the term in the moral sense, then the legal positivist would say that there is no necessary connection between law and justice in the moral sense. But then if you're using the justice in the legal sense, that merely application of law in a particular case leads to justice, we do not look into the question whether the law is morally just or unjust, then the answer would be different here. I hope you understood. So if you're using the term justice in the moral sense of the term, jurisprudence deals with much more than just that. Okay, but then yes, jurisprudence deals with these questions of justice, as you are asking here. So can we say that jurisprudence is a subject to interpret or try to interpret or define the concept of justice? Yes, it does. It deals with the question of justice, but then it deals with many other questions apart from the question of justice. So I hope I made myself clear here. Okay then. Then shall I proceed? Okay. So yes. So one question that you might ask me here at this stage is that, sir, can I not become a lawyer without studying the subject of jurisprudence? Yes, of course you can. In fact, historically, if you see that this degree became relevant for you to become a lawyer only recently. Earlier you would do apprenticeship for certain, as you understand today, okay? So you would associate with a lawyer for a long time, then you learn how to learn the different kinds of laws and how the law practice is done. By virtue of doing that, you can have sufficient knowledge of the law, okay? And of course, as of now, that is not possible because all these requirements are there that you need to have a degree in law, bachelor's degree in law, to be able to practice. But then you can ask this question that, okay, when we study law, as you are doing now, you're doing your bachelor's degree in law, can we not become lawyer in that sense? Okay, can we not become law graduates, okay, without studying the subject of jurisprudence? Yes, of course you can. You can learn all the different subjects, okay, of law, and then you can go on to practicing this, practicing and also become a good lawyer. There is no denying that you can. Then you ask me this question, okay, so then what's the point of studying jurisprudence? Well, apart from the fact that it's a subject which is there in your syllabus, other answers will be what? Okay, so let me tell you this. Let's see. So for example, if a house is being built, okay, you see workers working there, okay, carpenters, masons, all these people are working there, okay. They do the task, okay, on the ground, okay, as they are assigned, okay. But then they do not have they might acquire over a long period of time, but then you do not expect an in-depth understanding of, for example, how a structure is to be designed, how it is to be built, and what kind of design will maintain the structural integrity and all that. Because for such knowledge, okay, you need a much greater, in-depth understanding of, for example, material science, okay, thermodynamics, and many other things, okay. So those are certain fundamental, knowledge that you need to have to be able to have a better understanding of how to go about constructing a particular structure. Do you understand the distinction here? I hope you understood what I'm trying to explain. You can say yes if you have, and otherwise no. I'll try to explain it again. So what I'm essentially saying here is that, yes, you can be a lawyer. Yes, I'm explaining it. So what I'm saying here is that you can be a lawyer, but do you want to be a better lawyer who has understanding of what essentially law is all about, okay? How law functions, and what are the various things that go into defining the concept of law. If you are clear with these fundamental questions, then you will have a better understanding of those specific laws that you deal with. Do you understand? So it gives you certain tools, okay? It gives you certain tools, certain ideas that help you in better understanding the laws that you deal with when you practice law, for example. Do you understand? So here's how it goes, okay? Merely knowing certain facts of law is not sufficient, okay? It is also necessary to know about whys and hows about those laws, okay? So jurisprudence provides you tools to understand those whys and hows about laws, okay? Rather than taking them as it comes to you, okay? So for example, okay, your computer might have 500 GB or 1 TB memory, okay, but it merely has the memory, okay? But then you also require the computer to process information, okay? For that, it requires processor, okay? But then it's not the best explanation for that, but you know, jurisprudence gives you the capacity to process all those laws that you come across, that you deal with, okay? So you have a better, thorough, well-founded, coherent understanding of what the law is, how the law works, what the defects in the law are. So this is what jurisprudence helps you with. So have I made myself clear now? Have I been able to explain this thing to you? So the thing is simple, okay? Ask a common mason or a carpenter to come up with a structure of a building. It will be difficult because that, you know, that structure is always drawn by some engineer, okay? But then when it comes to execution, it is done by this, okay, by them. So for you, you can definitely deal with law just the way a carpenter or mason does, and maybe over a long period of time you acquire certain other fundamental knowledge as well. But then, if you already acquire all these fundamental, you know, ideas in your head, you know, then you have better understanding of how everything works out there. Okay, I have one more question. Okay, with the ever so changing legal landscape, can we say that justice is becoming more of a normative concept? Justice is always about normative concept. It's not becoming normative concept, okay? But then if you're asking whether legal justice is, but then those from the, you know, perspective of legal theory, they would say that we use the term normative in a very restricted sense here. Okay, so for example, Carlson or HLA Hart. But then, you know, when I'm using those names, I'm not conveying anything. But then just understand this, that justice has always been a normative, concept. Normative in the sense that it is value laden. Okay, it has certain values. Okay, so justice is never without certain kind of values. So yes, so I hope you understood that as a lawyer. Okay, so for example, when you come across a particular law, and let me give you an example, okay? When you come across a particular law, okay? For example, a definition which is provided to you, and you are to interpret that particular definition, okay? It's better if you have good knowledge of the subject of jurisprudence, then it gives you the tools to interpret the law in a better way. Maybe I'm overstating here, but then I think it provides you the required tool to be able to better interpret the law and apply in a particular context, okay? Or at least you are better capacitated to be able to interpret the law, understand the law, when you are equipped with the concepts and ideas and that we study in jurisprudence. Will the study of jurisprudence make us understand specific acts and laws easier? Do not use a double comparative, okay? Here, okay, so yes, it will make, yes, of course, after we can complete the entire subject of jurisprudence, I can, with reasonable certainty and assurance, say that yes, if you study the subject properly, it will give you adequate tools, okay, instruments to be able to grasp and understand the laws, acts, decisions that you come across, okay? Not just understand, you can also raise questions, you can also criticize them, okay? Because it will give you a coherent, you know, I shouldn't say coherent, not necessarily all the time, but then yes, it gives you, what should I say? It gives you those skills that you will be requiring, okay? Those tools that you will be requiring to assess a particular law. For in the simplest sense of the term, okay? You have the equipments to be able to understand and assess laws. So yes, the study of jurisprudence will equip you, if you focus properly, do not just, do rote learning, but also try and understand the concepts as you are taught. Yes, it will definitely, inevitably, equip you to better understand specific acts and laws, okay? It will make your life easier. But then, yeah, you have to take the study of this subject seriously. Okay, so as I was saying, that you become a better lawyer. Yeah, whether you can be a lawyer without studying the subject, of course you can. But do you want to be a better lawyer? Yes, of course. If you want to, then study the subject properly. Okay, it will make your life easier. Okay, but then the subject of jurisprudence doesn't merely have practical utility. So if I'm trying to justify, the subject, okay, in terms of its practical utility, that okay, it makes you a better lawyer, okay, then I might be doing a disservice to this, subject, okay? So apart from the utilitarian reasons, okay, apart from the utilitarian reasons that I'm telling you, apart from the fact that it makes you a better lawyer, the subject is also intellectually enriching, okay? It also, if you are not practicing law, if you merely took an intellectual interest in the subject matter, okay, then also this subject is of great relevance to you, okay? It enriches your understanding of the phenomenon of law, okay? Apart from the fact that it also makes you a better lawyer, okay? So that's what essentially I'm saying, that it makes you a better intellectual, okay? So yeah, that is also like utilitarian in certain sense of the term, but then not utilitarian in the practical utility of the subject when it comes to practicing law. So yes, that's why you should study the subject. Now, why else, okay? So see, the thing is that law is not a subject that is of concern only to those who practice law, okay? Law is of concern for everyone who's part of a legal system. So even as a citizen of a particular country, or even being inhabitant of a particular place, you are subject to law, whether you know about it or you don't know. You are subject to law. The fact that you are not murdering someone right now, the fact that you are not stealing some property from someone's pen, someone's mobile, means that you are adhering to law. Okay, so for example, a particular provision of a criminal code says that, okay, so killing someone is will be considered, okay, murder, okay, and then so and so punishment is provided for murder, okay. The fact that you are not murdering someone right now, or for example, some a particular provision of law, Indian Penal Code, okay, defines what is theft. The fact that you are not thieving something, you are not stealing something, means that you are adhering to the law. So we are all subject to the law, okay. Law is ubiquitously present everywhere, okay. Not just today, it has been there all the time, okay. But then, okay, law in the modern sense of the term is quite different from how it existed in earlier times. I'm not going into all those questions as of now, okay. So everything that we do, okay, we are bound by the law, okay. So that's why, because the law is present everywhere, its presence is quite ubiquitous, okay. It is necessary that we also understand the phenomenon of law, and hence also the subject of law, okay, and the subject of jurisprudence, sorry. So it's better if you understand the if you want to understand this phenomenon called law better, okay, then you cannot ignore the subject of jurisprudence. So today I'm just trying to tell you guys about the utility of the subject of jurisprudence, okay. So if you study jurisprudence, this is how it helps, okay. Then one more question that that arises is that, why do we obey the law, okay? Why do we obey the law, okay? There could be many different ways of answering that question. I'm not going into detailed answers of those questions, okay, as we will deal with them only later when we take up specific thinkers from specific schools. But then does it suffice to say that, okay, we obey the law because the law says so? So for example, if I say that, okay, you shall obey me, you shall obey what I say, okay, then you might raise the question that, why should I obey you? If my answer is that you obey me because I say so, then that is not a sufficient answer. Okay, that is not a sufficient answer. So, for example, you are reading a comics of Spider-Man, okay? Whether Spider-Man exists or not, silly answer, you know. You can raise the question whether Spider-Man exists or not. One might say that Spider-Man exists. Then you say that, okay, prove it, how? And then you say that, okay, the book says so. That's not sufficient to prove existence of, you know, Spider-Man. Okay. Similarly, you know, it's not sufficient to say that I should, you know, follow the law because the law says so. Okay. I need certain other reasons, you know, for obeying the law. Okay, certain other reasons are required with regard to this question of why I should obey the law. Now the question that arises, okay, is whether that reason is a legal reason or a moral reason. Okay, whether why I should follow the law, why I should obey the law. The question of obedience that we will be dealing with throughout this subject. Okay, the question is why obey the law? The answer is what? What is the reason for obedience law? Is it a legal reason because the law says so? And what is the specific legal reason? Or is it a moral reason? Okay, if you are trying to find answer to that question, okay, that specific question of obedience to law, you need to study this subject of jurisprudence. So I'm referring to the reading that I had, suggested that you guys go back and study. Okay, so this is what jurisprudence helps you with, that, you know, deal with this question of why obey the law. But here's something that I want to, tell you guys. This is the question of obedience to law is not something that is dealt with only by the so-called jurists, but also by many other political thinkers. Okay, because when you do political theory inevitably takes you, close to these questions of legal theory. Okay, so yeah, so you might have already heard about this, these questions already in your political science classes if you have studied certain other thinkers there. So you might have already heard about this there. So anyway, jurisprudence also as a subject gives you better understanding of this question of why obey law. So I hope this much is clear. If it is, then okay, so I have one question here. Why obey the laws as we are apprehensive of the consequences like punishment that follow? Yes, this is a good answer. In fact, sanction is what is the justification for obedience to law according to Austin. But as I said, I will come to specific reasons only later on, because there are others who say that obedience to law is not merely about sanction, that is punishment, as you are saying here, but there are certain other, things as well. I'm using the word thing for lack of better words, and I'll explain them later on. But then jurisprudence helps you in understanding this question as to why obey the law. Fine, law is there, we know everywhere. What if I do not follow the law? If I do not follow the law, if I do not obey the law, does that mean that law ceases to exist? Okay, so all these questions are essentially dealt with by a jurist. Okay, now let's proceed to certain other important aspects about the subject in this topic of jurisprudence. Okay, there are many different senses in which okay, I have one more question. Isn't the idea that we follow the law only because of its consequences? Well, as I just, this question has been asked once again. Okay, consequence, I will say that you are referring to it in terms of punishment or sanction, whatever. Is that the sense in which you have used? Then I will proceed. Consequences in the sense of sanction, because that means any person who has the means to avoid the consequences need not follow the law. Yes, very interesting question. So very good questions which are being asked very early. But I will be able to answer these questions only later, because otherwise I will confuse the others. But then these are very important questions you guys should remember. Okay, whether we follow the law, whether we obey the law, only because of fear of consequences. Consequences, I assume you're referring to in the sense of punishment, okay? That, or it could also be reward, that, okay, if you follow the law, then you will be rewarded with something. And if you do not follow the law, okay, then you will be punished. For example, with imprisonment, fine, whatever, okay? So the question is whether law is, obedience to law is all about sanctions, okay, all about consequences. Some say yes, others say no. Okay, I will be answering that question with more certainty later on, not now. So for now, just reserve this question. Okay. Yes. So some say that yes, it is all about consequences. Others say no. Okay, I will not go any farther than that because I'll be confusing others. So kindly hold this until later. But these are good questions as raised by Disha and Rajiv Malaka. Yes, so ask me these questions later. Anyway, I'll have to deal with them later on. So anyway, jurisprudence deals with this question of why obey the law. Now, proceeding further, certain misnomers, okay, so not misnomers, I mean certain other senses in which the word jurisprudence is used, okay, we need to eliminate them for us to understand exactly what we are doing here, okay. So for example, you might come across certain terms like jurisprudence of Supreme Court of India, okay, so Supreme Court of India. In such case, we are using the term jurisprudence, but are we using the term jurisprudence in the sense that we are doing it now in this particular case? Well, no. Why not? Because when we say, for example, jurisprudence of Supreme Court or jurisprudence of any other court, okay, you might have read it in this particular, reading that I have sent, okay, it refers to US Supreme Court, High Court of Australia, or any other court, okay. What do we mean when we use the word jurisprudence in that sense? Well, in that case, we are using that word in a different sense, okay? Not in the sense we are using it here, okay? So what is that? So for example, a court might have a particular attitude to dealing with law questions, different law questions, okay? So when we are using the word jurisprudence of a particular court, we are looking at the attitude of a particular court in dealing with certain legal questions, okay? It is the peculiar attitude of a particular court. Okay, so for example, whether a particular court is, favoring the executive, or it is favoring, right jurisprudence, or it is favoring, taking some certain other approach. So if you look at the approaches taken by courts, okay, in different matters, okay, and you are using the word jurisprudence to refer to the courts, okay, then you are using the word, jurisprudence in a completely different way, not the way we are dealing with here. So yes, exactly. So yes, peculiar attitude in judicial decisions, okay. So if you're referring to attitudes, okay, then there is a different use altogether. So we as a jurists here, we all are jurists, okay, students of jurisprudence, okay. We do not claim to be experts. We are learners of jurisprudence. But when we do jurisprudence in the sense we are doing here, we are not merely looking at the attitudes of judges or courts in different matters. No, we are raising certain fundamental questions, and we are not just identifying judicial attitudes. No. So therefore, when we use the words, for example, jurisprudence of this court, that court, we are not using the word jurisprudence in the sense we are using it here when we are studying the subject of jurisprudence. So I hope this distinction is clear. Is it clear? Then I'll proceed. Okay, one more. Are you guys even there? I hope you guys are there. Okay. So I hope you understood. Okay, now apart from that, there is another sense in which it has been used. Okay, so for example, if you're looking at law of a particular legal system, okay, if you're looking at law of a particular legal system, so for example, here you have been given examples of, English, French, German jurisprudence, okay, they refer to laws of a particular country. So when I say English jurisprudence, you are referring to the laws, okay, substantive laws or any other laws, okay, procedural, substantive, whatever, enacted or judicial. So you are referring to laws of a particular country. So apart from the other one that I have mentioned, you also come across such use of the word jurisprudence. When someone says, for example, English jurisprudence, Indian jurisprudence, German jurisprudence, okay? When we are using the term jurisprudence in that nationalistic sense, we are referring to the laws of that particular country. We are still not using the word jurisprudence in the proper sense of the term that we are using in this particular subject. So I hope This distinction is also clear, quite simple. Okay. Apart from that, so this is a little funny. Okay. So there was a moot court competition which was held here. Okay, and it dealt with something called medical jurisprudence. So because the word jurisprudence was there, I was invited to adjudge the matter. Okay, I was asked to adjudge the moot. So when I was given the problem, it was something I was not very acquainted, with. Okay, so where did the confusion arise from? The fact that the word jurisprudence was there. Many thought that I'm the right person to be able to deal with that specific problem. So what's the problem here? So you come across words like medical jurisprudence or any other jurisprudence. Okay. You are not using the word jurisprudence in the sense we jurists do. Okay, so you might be dealing with specific case laws with in medical laws and medical ethics and all that, and then you can use the term medical jurisprudence to refer to that. Okay, so that is also not what jurists do when they do jurisprudence. Okay, so I hope you guys understood what jurists specifically do when they do jurisprudence. Okay, it's not, the word jurisprudence is not to be confused with all these three other senses that I tried to explain to you. I hope that is clear. Is it clear? If it is not, raise your questions. If it is, then ask questions. Okay, it is clear then. Okay, so don't be confused. Okay, medical jurisprudence or any other jurisprudence. Okay, merely using the word jurisprudence doesn't mean that you are doing jurisprudence in the sense a jurist would do. Okay. Anyway, so I hope this is clear so far. So when we do jurisprudence in this sense, okay, we essentially try and understand the concept of law, okay, in a scientific manner. Okay, in a scientific manner. Well, some would say in scientific manners, others might disagree. Okay, so it essentially involves scientific and philosophical investigations into the social phenomenon of law and justice generally, as has been defined in the book that I had sent. Okay, so it is more of a fundamental inquiry, okay, scientific philosophical inquiry into the questions of law and justice and relations between law and justice and legal system, etc., etc. So quite often when you do jurisprudence, you might also have to take help from other subjects, and that could be any subject. Okay, so it could be history, it could be philosophy, it could be logic, psychology, even physics and mathematics. Okay, so you might have to take help from as of now, you might also need help from certain kind of computer modeling. Okay, even AI. Okay, all those things could also help you in understanding this phenomenon of law. Okay, so when we do jurisprudence, we do not necessarily restrict ourselves to only this subject of law as traditionally understood, but we could also take help from other disciplines. But then that's one of the approaches. Okay, let me be very clear here. Okay, there are certain thinkers. Okay, certain thinkers like who, for example, John Austin. Okay, then Bentham, H.L.A. Hart, and most essentially Hans Kelsen. Okay, these legal positivists say that when we do jurisprudence, okay, when we do jurisprudence, we are not concerned about all these subjects that I have mentioned. Okay, we are concerned only about defining law. We do not take help from all these other subjects. But then there are many other thinkers who say that we cannot understand the law in the absence of also understanding certain other questions. Okay, so for understanding those other questions, you need to also have knowledge about philosophy, psychology, economics, history, sociology, physics, mathematics, and other disciplines. So anyway, these are confusing questions, but then these are different attitudes within the subject of jurisprudence. So I hope that is clear. I got you confused already, but I hope you understood what the confusion is all about. Am I clear? Say yes, type yes. If not, then no, you don't have to type yes. So yes, then fine. Then I'll proceed from here. Let me see what the time is. Okay, time's up. So for today, we'll stop here. We will proceed with the remaining topic in the next class. I have recorded this whole thing, so I'll be sharing later on. For now, you go back and read the portion, introductory portion, because I'll take another class, and in that I'll complete the introductory portion, and then we can proceed to schools of jurisprudence. Okay. Okay, one question. Okay, sir, I had some network issues when attendance was taken, so I missed. I'm taking the attendance again, so I'll cross-check that. Okay, so do not leave yet. I'm taking the attendance quickly once more. So don't worry about attendance. Okay, the attendance is done. Do not worry about attendance. Okay, then thank you. Let's meet tomorrow if I have class tomorrow. Thank you. Good day.